Hey YouTube, Common Collector here, and today I'm bringing you guys an update to my Adamancipator fossil deck profile. It is crazy to me that it took me this long to do this update because we got these new fossil cards in Ghost from the Past 2, Electric Boogaloo, which came out like 9 months ago. So yeah, definitely overdue for this deck profile, but I do want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor for the channel, which is Mammoth Headwear. A lot of you guys have participated in purchasing from them, which does directly help to support the channel, so I appreciate that. But without any further ado, let's get on into the deck profile. If you guys are not subscribed to the channel, I would really appreciate it if you guys would consider, especially if you guys enjoy the deck profile. Let's get into it. So we're starting off with obviously 3 copies of the Best of the Adamancipator main deck monsters, 3 copies of Researcher. She's just super duper good, being able to special summon as long as you have a rock on the field, and then she's going to allow you to pick up the top 5 cards of your deck and then be able to special summon a level 4 or lower rock from among those cards, then put the rest of them to the bottom of the deck. Then obviously 3 copies of Seeker basically does the same thing. With the second effect, but the summoning condition to get it onto the field is to have another Adamancipator monster on the field, which is generally pretty easily done. Then we're getting on into 3 copies of Analyzer, basically like the Cyber Dragon of the archetype, being able to special summon as long as your opponent has more monsters than you do and whatnot. So these 3 cards, basically altogether, these 9 just work really well to be able to search for the cards that you need, get them onto the field, and are just like the main powerhouse and engine of the deck. For those of you guys who know that I love Morphtronics, basically Adamancipators are the gambling version of Adamancipators, so just really love the 2 decks and just how they function. Then we have our 1 copy of Adamancipator Crystal Dragite. This card is just really cool because it lets you, once it gets special summoned to the field, it lets you draw the top card of your deck. Just really nice to be able to get that draw off. Now getting into the fossil cards, we have 2 of the new copies of Flint Kragger. Again, I'm saying new even though these cards came out 9 months ago. But overall, Flint Kragger is a really good card. You just don't want to max out on it because you want to play kind of these low mid numbers of like 1 or 2 copies of a lot of these cards, just because like you want to see them eventually. But if like you don't open them or whatnot, it's fine. You'll eventually hopefully get to them with the Adamancipator cards. But with this card, when it's special summoned, you get to discard a card, which is not cost, which is really cool because all of the other fossil cards gain effects if they are sent to the graveyard by a card effect. So it has to be by card effect and not by cost. So you guys have to keep that in mind. But basically with this card, you get to discard a card. And then if you do, send a fossil fusion monster from your extra deck to the graveyard, which is really cool just because then you're able to get off their graveyard effects. Like a lot of the fossil extra deck monsters have really cool graveyard effects, which then let you help to search for other cards or be able to like blow up cards on your opponent's side of the field and whatnot. Then getting on into the 1 copy of Weathering Soldier. You really only need 1 of these nowadays, especially with the other cards that we're running in the deck to help to sort of like recycle this card. But basically 1 Weathering Soldier, as long as you can send it from your deck or your hand to the graveyard by card effect and stuff, then it's going to be really good at being able to help you to search for Fossil Fusion or just one of your other cards that specifically lists Fossil Fusion in the card text. Then 1 copy of Shell Knight as well. This card is a little bit less good, but overall it is still really cool, really powerful because it does help us to search for our Gaia Plate, the Earth Giant, which also just brings in new synergy into the deck. The card that all of these fossil cards synergize with is our 2 copies of Rock Band Xenoguitar. This card is just super duper good, which is why we're playing 2 copies of it. I basically, in testing, got to see this card almost every single time, but basically if you do end up bricking and drawing your Weathering Soldier, you can always use Xenoguitar to use its effect when it's sent to the graveyard to be able to add one of your rocks from your graveyard back to your hand, and then you put a card from your hand back to the top of the deck. So then you can just recycle your Weathering Soldier, either recycle it if you already used its graveyard effect, or just if it's in your hand, just to put it back to the top of the deck. That way you can use its effect with like the Foolish Burial or the Miracle Rupture and whatnot. So overall, Xenoguitar, really nice, really good synergy for the deck. And then also when this card gets banished from the graveyard, you're able to send another, basically Foolish Burial, another rock monster back to the graveyard, which then synergizes with your Gaia Plate, which, like I said, gets searched by your Shell Knight. So all of this stuff really synergizes really well. So because the Earth Giant can be special summoned by removing from play 2 rock monsters from your graveyard, and then also during your standby phase, he has to banish another rock from the graveyard or he blows himself up. But then with Xeno Guitar, like I said, when she gets banished from the graveyard, then you're able to be able to Foolish Burial another rock monster to the graveyard. So just a ton of synergy there, being able to help load up your graveyard or to be able to recycle engine pieces that you need to. Then we're getting on into 3 copies of Doki Doki just to maximize consistency. This card is super duper good. The reason why we're actually playing 2 copies of the Flint Cragger, because I wanted to make sure that, because this is our only level 3 in the deck, and I'm really not a big fan of like the Giant Sentry Soldier of Stone or whatever it's called. That card just doesn't generally work. Generally, its effect doesn't go off too often. So I figured I would just play 2 copies of Flint Cragger because it's a good level 3. And then that's just how that's going to work for the Doki Doki. And then obviously you want to use Doki Doki as well for like your Analyzer. Just send a level 4, get Analyzer out of the deck, and then be able to use its effect. Then for some more level 4s, we have 2 copies of Kawaki Mirror Supplier, as well as, or 1 copy of Kawaki Mirror Supplier and 1 copy of Guardian, as well as our Barrier Statue of the Draught. This card is just so good for the deck. And towards the end of your turn, generally, like I said, you can use your copies of Xeno Guitar to use that Foolish Burial effect. And then you're going to pitch Barrier Statue of the Draught to the graveyard. And then you can use like your Monster Reborn-like effects to be able to bring the Barrier Statue back to the field, which is really crazy. Then 1 copy of Nibiru, the Primal Being. You could boost this up if you wanted to, but Nibiru is searchable through Gallic Granite and stuff, and you just don't want to brick too hard on some of these cards. So I sort of increased the number of like main deck monsters because you want to max out on those. That way you are able to see them. Then we're playing 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. I always play with the feet because no feet equals defeat, so you guys know how I always say that. But with the Ash Blossoms, it is actually really nice. It also sort of synergizes with the deck because we are playing all 3 of the Adamancipator Synchros, and this does work with your Leonite. So if you want to get if you get Ash Blossom into the graveyard, that's going to turn on your Leonite, and then Leonite is going to be able to bring back cards like your Barrier Statue of the Draught from the graveyard, bring them back out onto the field, and then you're able to stop your opponent from special summoning non-earth monsters, which is really, really cool. Then getting on into the spells, we're playing 3 copies of Signs. This is your other method of Monster Reborn to basically get out your Barrier Statue or whatever else you need, but then also being able to stack really good cards. If you bring back an Adamancipator back from the graveyard, you're able to stack the top card of your deck with a level 4 or lower rock type. And then also, if you guys don't know, there's a combo with the, where is it? I'm probably not going to be able to find it now. The Adamancipator Dragite should be right here, yeah. With the Dragite, when it is special summon, you get to draw, so basically you just use Signs, you special summon Dragite. Dragite is going to stack the top card of your deck, and then Signs is going to be able to draw you that card, or Signs is going to stack your deck, and then Dragite is going to be able to allow you to draw that card. Then getting on into 3 copies of our Fossil Fusion. Fossil Fusion, kind of the heart and soul of the deck, but there are still turns where you don't even use this card, but generally if you're going first, Fossil Fusion is going to be a great extender to be able to get level 4s out onto the field, whether you need them just for link fodder, synchro fodder, or if you need them to be able to, you can always use them to get into your other graveyard effects and whatnot, so you just link them away, go into like Gallic Granite and whatnot, use Gallic Granite, detach the level 4 fusion monster to be able to get Gallic Granite Surge, and then you use the graveyard effect of the fusion monster as well, which is really cool. Then we have our 2 copies of Time Stream. You could cut this down to 1, but still it does come up where you have 1 and then you search the other one and then you like go up into an 8 from a 4, which is really cool. Then 3 copies of Miracle Rupture and then 1 copy of Foolish Burial. So basically 4 copies of Foolish Burial for the deck. But it does still come up where you want to use like Foolish Burial, like I said, to just pitch an Ash Blossom. That way your Leonite is live. And then for the 40th card of the deck, 1 copy of Called by the Grave, just to make sure that we can stop our opponent's hand traps and make sure that we can maximize our plays. But that's it for the extra, or for the main deck. Let's get on into the extra. So for the fusions in the extra deck, we are playing basically 1 of each of the Fossil Fusions, -1. Little spoiler alert. I was really sad, but I had to cut the Fossil Dragon Skullgios. This was back in the day my favorite of all of the fossils, just because I love a T-Rex, and like, I mean, this card just like looks so cool, like just great artwork and whatnot. But if you guys don't like the extra deck, you guys can always put this in if you want like a full maximized pure build. But we are basically playing one of each of these. These cards have really good effects when they're in the graveyard, especially because Buggy is going to be able to search you for any monster that mentions Fossil Fusion. Then you have Skullbone to be able to add a Time Stream, and then Skullgar to be able to add you a Fossil Fusion. But it does require one of your opponent's monsters from the graveyard as your Fossil Fusion material, so you do have to keep that in mind. Then getting on into our level 6s, I could have really cut the Skull Wagon, but I wanted to maximize on the 6s for the card that I actually replaced for the Skull Gios, which is Beatrice, which we will get to in a second here. But Beatrice, really, really nice for the deck as well. That way we have another Foolish Burial. But yeah, that's going to do it for the 6s. And then we are playing one copy of the Fossil Warrior Skull King, and then one copy of the Skull Convoy. Skull Convoy is just so good in the deck, being able to just get over big towers monsters and be able to, just be able to get over just a ton of stuff. It basically takes the defense of your opponent's monsters and takes it off of their attack, and then you're able to just crash over whatever you want, as long as that monster has considerable defense. And then the Skull King, I wanted to keep him in because he does actually have a little bit of graveyard disruption. So during your opponent's turn, quick effect, you can target one monster in your opponent's graveyard, discard one card, and if you do, special summon that monster to your field. So if your opponent's going to like Monster Reborn something out of their graveyard or whatnot, or if they need a certain card in the graveyard, you can just steal that card. Maybe if it's a really good card, you can steal it and it'll help you out. But overall, just having that little disruption was a little bit too much for me to not keep it in the deck and replace Skull Gios out of the deck, which is unfortunate. But then one copy of Naturia Beast. You guys can just tell how heartbroken I am about taking out the Skull Gios. But one copy of Naturia Beast, because this card is just really, really nice to be able to use. You basically have to get into that with your Skull Kregar or your Flint Kregar. You basically need that. That's your only level 3 to be able to get into that route, but overall it is still really, really easy, and it is definitely worth it to play it. One copy of the Leo Knight. Like I said, Leo Knight is actually maybe the most important of the monsters, because basically with the Leo Knight, you can use him to set up to be able to get your barrier statue back. You can use it to get just a ton of stuff back, but basically you're going to be doing it to get back the barrier statue. If you need to draw another card, you could also, so barrier statue, you could also always bring back just your Adamancipator, bring back your Adamancipator Dragite, just one of these two. Bring these two cards back. You're going to draw a card, or you're going to be able to, if it is set up in your graveyard, bring back the barrier statue, and then lock your opponent out of non-earth types, non-earth attributes. Then we have one copy of Raptite, really good card, and then the one copy of the Risen Dragite. Dragite is just such a cool card. Being able to bounce just a ton of cards back to your opponent's hand is so cool. One copy of Gallic Granite, and then one copy of Beatrice. This is why I kept in both of the level 6 Fossil Fusion cards, just because it is really nice to be able to just go into those for free with a Fossil Fusion, and then go into Beatrice, use Beatrice to dump your Fossil Fusion or your barrier statue, and then get out your Leo Knight, and then just Leo Knight brings that card back, locks your opponent out. So it's just really cool. This is an OTK deck, but I sort of built it to be able to go into both playstyles. Then we're going into one copy of IP Masquerena, and then just one copy of Appaloosa to round out the 15-card extra deck. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for the deck profile. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this one. I know that this one was kind of all over the place, but that's just kind of because of how the play style of this deck is. All of the cards are very synergistic, which is why I was bouncing around so much for the profile. There's just a lot of different ways that the whole deck works. For how clunky Adamancipators can be sometimes if you don't get the right draws, overall, or like the proper excavations. Overall, this deck does synergize really, really well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Again, please subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already, and go ahead and check out all of the links down in the description below for all of the sponsors for the channel, as well as checking out the Patreon if you guys are looking to help to support the channel. But I really appreciate it. Thank you guys again so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next profile. Peace.